Hey, you guys. Good morning. It's the early morning for me. I don't have makeup on or anything yet. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning where I am. And like I haven't brushed my hair or anything yet. But I wanted to start recording because I got a lot of stuff going on in my mind. And the best time for me to get that stuff out of my mind without forgetting about it is early in the morning. So that is why you guys get to see me like this. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jessica. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I suffered with and existed within a very active, very dangerous drug addiction for 14 years that I almost did make it out of alive. And now I am a certified peer recovery specialist. I'm a certified Narcan trainer. And I am living a life that I never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams thought would be available to me. So welcome to my channel. On my channel, I like to talk about active addiction, recovery, harm reduction, the mental health that I suffer with and that I can speak on with my lived experience, and all the things in between. Anyway, to start on the video, I'm coming to you guys like this without my hair brushed or any makeup on or anything like that this morning, because when I get up in the morning, it takes my brain a while to get going. I'm a little fuzzy in the morning, and I like to go sit outside with my dog and, drink my coffee and a little bit of Starbucks left over from yesterday, and, just get my day started. And the most mindless thing that I can do to get my day started is to get on social media. I've noticed lately, and it's not even lately, it's an ongoing thing. It's something that I strive to fight against all the time. And quite a lot of the people that I follow and that I associate with in my real life, not on social media, we fight against it all the time. And that's stigma. Because there is a ton of stigma relating to addiction, substance use disorder, recovery, alcoholism, PTSD, mental health, and I fight against it because I've lived it. I fight against it because it's bullshit. I don't mind. I've gotten to a place in my life, for the most part, I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that it doesn't ever bother me, but I've gotten to a place in my life where, for the most part, if people call me a junkie and tell me that I'm worthless and that I'm never going to amount to anything, it doesn't really bother me because I know that that's not true. I've proven them wrong, and I will continue to prove them wrong. And I know that a lot of the people that I deal with on a daily basis, I know that that's not true. I fight against stigma so hard because I know that most people who suffer with substance use disorder specifically, I know that most people, not all of them, because there are plenty of people that suffer with substance use disorder, that had a good childhood, etc., that haven't had any trauma in their lives or anything like that, and they still, went to the doctor because they had a car accident or a football injury or sports injury, anything like that, and their doctor overprescribed them medication. I understand that, but the majority of us, in my experience, that suffer with substance use disorder have had very traumatic things happen to us, whether it was in our childhood or at some point in our life. We have had very traumatic things happen to us. And I know that for a lot of people that have never turned to addiction or turned to alcohol or any other mind-altering substance, that's hard for you guys to understand. I feel like there are a lot of people out there that are in recovery or are still in active addiction. We wish that we would have never walked down the path that we walked. But the simplest way that I can explain it to you that will maybe help you understand is the very first time that we picked up our drug of choice or our drink of choice after going through whatever it was in our life that was so traumatic, and we pick up that first drink or drug, it is the very first relief from that trauma that we get in a very, very long time. I know that for me, the very first time that I did pain medicine recreationally, that was not prescribed to me. I was in pain, but it was not prescribed to me. It was offered to me, actually through he's my ex now, but through his mother. And she offered me pain medicine because her son had beat me up the night before, and I was in a pretty significant amount of pain. And she offered it to me, and I've talked about this before in another video, but I remember that for the first time in my life, and I was 21 or 22. I can't remember exactly right now when I started using. I think I was 22. But I remember for the first time in those 20 some years, for the very first time, that I did not care about my childhood anymore. When you go through something that is very traumatic in your life for a very long time period, and it's something that weighs on you every day, that you can't find an escape from, and then all of a sudden you do something, or something happens in your life that gives you an escape from that trauma, it's almost unexplainable. So for the people out there that say addiction is a choice, for the first while of my addiction, for the first little bit of my addiction, yeah, I will be the first to admit, I chose it until I didn't have a choice in the matter anymore, because 20 years is a very long time to hold a lot of trauma and not know what to do with it or how to handle it. And I'm not, please don't think that I'm advocating for anyone to go down the path that I did. Please don't think that, because I'm not. Because for me, it added a lot of trauma. Anyway, I say all that because that's what I mean when I say most of the people that suffer with substance use disorder, any of the other stuff that is detrimental to their lives, that, outsiders that have never gone through this are looking in and just think that we are trying to self-destruct or trying to, destroy our lives. You don't understand. I just want to try to give you a way to understand why we do the things that we do. And I know that there's always going to be people out there that don't understand it, and they're going to be like, well, I wouldn't have done it this way. That's fine. Like I said, there's always going to be people that disagree. But I just want to give you guys kind of, like I said, I guess just a way to understand why someone would, quote unquote, choose that. It's just, It's a fucking relief. And it sounds so fucked up to say it. To add trauma to get away from your trauma. But it is. And when we're getting away from that trauma with our addiction, we don't realize what it's going to do. We don't realize the path that it's going to take us down. Because your brain tells you that it's going to be okay. Your brain tells you that you're not going to be like so-and-so. If you have someone in your life that's suffering from addiction and you see what it's doing to them, and you see all the bad things that addiction can do, if you know about addiction and you're starting down that path, your brain is going to tell you that you're not going to be that way. I knew full well that my boyfriend and pretty much his entire family were wrapped in the throes of addiction. I knew that, I didn't know that it was called addiction then, but I knew that they would go to some crazy lengths to get their drugs. I knew that they were doing things that I would just sit there and be like, what the fuck are y'all doing? And the whole time my brain was telling me, you're not going to be like that, Jessica. You're not going to do that. It's not going to ever get that bad. And to be completely honest with you, it took me a while to get that bad in my addiction. But I got there. Your addiction lies to you. Your disease lies to you. Your own brain lies to you. One of my favorite authors is Stephen King. And has this quote from Stephen King, and I think it's from his book. I think it's from Under the Dome. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it says on there, I think when it comes to drugs, the body and the mind are co-conspirators. If the brain wants, the body helps out. Don't worry. Don't feel guilty. It's okay. I really hurt. And that quote out of that book has always just resonated with me because it's so true. Your body and your mind really are co-conspirators when it comes to addiction, and they will tell each other, that's okay. You're not as bad. You're not as bad as so-and-so. You're not going to get as bad as, and I heard it when I was going to NA a lot. When you're, I forget exactly how they say it, but essentially in NA, sorry if you guys can hear my dog. He thinks I'm ignoring him. So he's whining. You're okay. But in NA, they would tell you that they realized that they were getting to their moment of desperation. You see him? You see him hanging out down there? Buddy, look up here. You see his face? You can't see him. He's camera shy. Anyway, when their have-nots become their already done-that's, and I'm sure that there's a better way to put that, but what they mean by that is, when you're in active addiction, like you always have those things that you set back in reservation. Like, well, I started out as a crusher. Like you would crush your DOC up and snort it or eat it. And I have not become an IV drug user yet. And I will not become, and as long as I don't, you get where I'm going with this? Our brain always tells us whenever we're in active addiction. And I'm sure any other addiction of any sort works the same way, but I can only speak on the addiction that I have lived experience in, so I'll just stick to that. But, we always tell ourselves, as long as I don't do this, or I'll never get this bad, and that's how we justify our drug use, and we justify our addiction, and we make it okay in our mind. And a lot of people in NA, and a lot of people had never even been to NA actually, say that. I knew that when my have-nots turned into, I've already done that. It was time for me to get help or to start considering to get help. I talk to people that are still in active addiction, and they recall, I used to say I would never be an IV drug user. And that's a big thing that I talk to for a lot of people. And that's why I continuously bring that up, is a lot of people started out just, eating a pill. And now they've bumped it up to an IV drug user or smoking their product, their drug of choice. So, that's a big, in my area, let me put it that way, in my area and the people that I interact with and try to help, IV drug use has become a really big thing in the last 5 years. When people go from just however they started out in their addiction to bumping up to something that they consider like a hardcore drug user, your mind will still justify that. And that's a scary level to go to. But even, you bump up to whether it's a different way of using or bumping up your dose or changing your drug of choice. If you go from one thing to another, whatever the situation may be, it's scary for a little while. But our addiction, our disease, our brain tells us it's okay. You had to do this, and we will find ways to justify it. Like in my area, when I started using, pills were a really big thing. The pill epidemic, the Oxycontin epidemic was really big when I started using it. It had just kicked off around here. It was really easy for people around here in my area to go to a doctor and get Oxycontin. It didn't take very long for those to become very pricey. People started having to switch over to heroin. And heroin is a much cheaper drug. There were a lot of people that made that jump because it was a price thing. You could go out and people were paying $1 a milligram for Oxycontin. So you could get heroin for $5, $10 a bag around here. And a lot of people were really scared of heroin because, our addiction, our brains, our whatever, we can justify something that a doctor will write a prescription for. Well, that's safe. That's a prescription. That's something that comes from a doctor that we can go pick up from a pharmacy or take someone to pick up from a pharmacy. So we know that's safe. But heroin, but even the people that I know that made the jump to heroin, they were scared about it at first. They made that jump because financially they couldn't support their habit anymore. They couldn't be sick and go through the withdrawals. So, a lot of people made that jump to heroin because they didn't have choice in their mind. And I know that there's always going to be people out there that are watching or that see this video in the future and they're like, well, they could have just quit. Well, it's not that easy. Your brain will just tell you things about your addiction, that it's okay. And that's why it's so easy for your addiction to just snowball, because it is a disease. Like it fucks with your brain so much. I mean, I've done things in my addiction that I never, ever thought that I would have. And, looking back on my addiction, I consider myself very lucky because I was able to maintain 2 to 3 jobs at all times during my addiction. There were a couple, times in between where I was with that one boyfriend whose mom, kind of kickstarted me on my addiction, and we lived together, and he didn't like me working. He was very abusive. So there were times when we were together where I wasn't working. So most of the time I was working. I was able to support me and my daughter. But I love my child more than the air that I breathe. But if I needed to leave the house and go get drugs, you bet your ass that I left the house and went and got drugs. I never left her unattended. I wouldn't leave her as a baby just sitting, at our home, wherever we were living at the time. Please don't ever think that. And I could bring Danielle on my channel and she would tell you that I didn't do that. So it wasn't like that, but as far as like taking her, to my best friend's house or a babysitter or whatever and dropping her off and making up some bullshit excuse about, I had to go to work or whatever so I could go and get drugs, you bet your ass I did that. And I would feel so bad about that I can remember getting physically sick because of the guilt of that. I would feel so guilty about that. But I would still do it. Your addiction takes over you. It takes over everything in your life. And I know that there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of people before me. And unfortunately, there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of people after me that can sit in front of a camera or you can have a conversation with that will say the exact same thing. And there will always be people out there that don't understand. And there's nothing that I can do about that to fight that stigma except to continue doing what I'm doing on a daily basis to make these videos and to talk to people and, just try to make people understand it really is a disease. And did I make that choice to pick up that drug that first time? Yeah, I did. I made that choice because let me tell you, I can remember sitting in that living room. And it felt like just this fuzzy blanket went over my brain is the best way that I can explain it. A lot of people explain it as like a warm hug. And yeah, it did kind of feel like that. But, my brain is constantly going. And it's better now than it used to be. Because I've learned healthy ways to work on my trauma and work on how I deal with it and how I process it. And I have made leaps and bounds on things that have happened to me in my childhood and things that happened to me while I was in active addiction. But back then, my brain would not stop. And it was just constant. All the time, just questioning why. And that's such a miserable way to live. And, you feel helpless because you can't get away from it. And there's never any relief from it. You never get any answers. You never get any closure. You never understand it. So, being that young, having a child to raise of my own, and having no idea what to do, how to handle any of it, how to process any of it, I took the first thing that was offered to me that gave me relief and I ran with it. So, every time I see someone saying, well, you shouldn't have made that choice. You did it to yourself. That's why I get so passionate about it. And that's why I stick up for that homeless junkie standing on the side of the road asking for money. That's why I stop and give homeless people that you can visibly look at and tell that they're messed up on drugs, rides. That's why I give them money that I have in my wallet. That's why I go and hand out Narcan and teach people how to use it. That's why I will take them to needle exchanges. That's why I'll sit down and talk to them. That's why I will do whatever I can for them. Because I know that sometimes those people are carrying around more hurt than they know what to do with. And that somewhere along the line, somebody offered them something and they took it just like I did, and wham, all of that pain went away. And it didn't last because my pain relief from all of my trauma and, all of that, that didn't last. It came back and I started using more and more and more, trying to block it out. And then more bad things started happening. And it was just, it just piled on more and more and more because it's a cycle. It's just a fucking cycle that you have to break, but it's not that easy. People say, oh, just walk away, just quit, just... It's not that easy, y'all. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. So there's a little bit more of my story. And a little bit more of an explanation as to why I was in active addiction for 14 years. And maybe it'll help you guys understand if you have a loved one out there, someone you care about, a friend, or, maybe next time you're out at the grocery store, out in public somewhere, and you see somebody and you want to pick up your phone and film them and put it on your TikTok or your social media or whatever the case is, maybe you'll stop for just a minute and think. That inside that person somewhere is some really fucked up shit that they got no idea how to deal with. And you'll just show a little bit of compassion, because a little bit of compassion goes a long way. And I don't care who you are or what you do, how much money you have in the bank or how little money you have in the bank, who your family is or what kind of childhood you had, or I don't care about any of that. You have no fucking right to judge anybody, ever. And there's always going to be people out there that do it. There's always going to be people out there that film other people suffering and put it on the internet. Because, people are just assholes. And that's what people like me are here for, is to combat those assholes. But just think next time you see somebody out there suffering, just show a little bit of compassion. Because what you see on the outside of their suffering more than likely runs really, really deep on the inside. They probably have no idea where to start or how to handle it. And you showing them a little bit of compassion, even if it's just a smile, and, hey, how are you today? Or holding the door open for them while they're walking into a convenience store. A little bit of kindness goes a long way. Little things like that make a big difference in people's day. So, just be nice to people is how I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys are all doing good. I am going to end this video here so I can go and start my day. You guys have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. You know the drill. If you need anything, reach out to me. My contact information is always in my description box below. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.